Hey there, good people. My name is Scott, and you are watching Sword and Shield Studio. Right now, I'm going to share with you a free lower third preset graphic that looks something like what is being shown at the bottom of the screen right now. I will show you how you can bring this into Resolve to use in your own projects. Then I'll dive into the specifics of how it works so you can modify it or perhaps make a similar animation on your own. This animation uses the new Anim curves modifier in DaVinci Resolve 17, so you'll need that version to create this, but that means that it's fully adjustable on the edit page timeline and will work across a variety of frame rates. All right, so let's get right into it. So to bring this lower third preset into Resolve, it is pretty simple. I created one version with a title underneath the person's name and one without. Both are included in the video description below as separate files. You will also need the font Roboto, which you can find linked in the description as well if you want your animation to look identical to mine. All you have to do is navigate to the Fusion tab in Resolve where we are now, and create a new fusion composition the length and frame rate you want the animation to be. So in order to do that, I will go up to the top left to my media pool here, right click the open space, and from the drop down menu select new fusion composition. In this prompt I will set my duration to 7 seconds, which I find works well. You can set yours to whatever duration you like. And I'm going to keep the frame rate at 24 frames per second. Again, you can set the frame rate to whatever you like as well. And I will hit create and double click the fusion composition in the media pool to open it. And it should give us a media out node here. Next, navigate in your OS to where you downloaded the .setting files. And I'm going to drag the lower third with the title down to my node tree here. Again, just drag whichever one you'd like to use with or without the title to the node tree. And then I will connect it to the media out. And you should see a transparent background composition. I'm going to close my media pool so you can see it better. If we scrub through, we can see, okay, the lower third is working. So the first thing you're probably going to want to modify is the name in this lower third. I doubt you will want a John Smith Chief Executive Officer lower third in your project. So in order to do that, expand the group for the lower third in the node tree if you haven't yet by double clicking it. And then hit the name node. Double click name in your inspector to expand the options, and you will see the text field where we can change the name. I'm going to make this name Jonathan Smith instead of John Smith, and you'll see that the background has expanded to fit the text. However, not all of the name Jonathan is bolded. That's because this uses character level styling, which is a modifier in Fusion where you can specify parts of your text to be styled differently. So in order to get to that, to fix this, go up to the modifiers tab in your inspector, and in your viewer, hold left click and box select the name Jonathan, and then change the style to bold from the drop down for style under your font. And then left click outside of the name to deselect it, and we have fixed our character level styling. Next, you might want to change the size or color of the text. In order to do that, go back to the Tools tab in the inspector, and we can change the color here from the color menu and choose whatever you like and hit OK. And we might want to make this text a bit smaller. And you'll see making it smaller changes the size of the bar where it really doesn't fit the size of the lower third layout as well. So first thing we'll have to do is come over and nudge this in our viewer to hit the side of the color bar here, the white bar. And then we'll have to go to the shading tab in your inspector and change the extend vertical value to be larger. So I think probably 4.1 is about right. You may have to adjust the position a bit. And you'll notice the title moves along with the name text, so you don't have to worry about the positioning of that. Okay, great. We've changed the size and the color of the name text without much effort. And we've changed the background size to accommodate for the smaller text. You may also want to change the color of the background. So still in the shading tab, you can adjust the color from the color menu down here. If we want to make this pure black, we can make that adjustment here. Or if you want to remove the background altogether, you can uncheck where it says enabled here next to select element 2. You can uncheck that, and you'll just have a transparent background for your lower third if that's what you prefer. But I'm going to keep it enabled for this tutorial. The next thing you may want to do is change the title. You can do that by left-clicking the title node in our node tree, double-click to expand it in the inspector, and we can change this, for instance, to General Manager if we like. And if we want to match the color that we changed in the name, we can just hold left-click on the eyedropper and select the color of our name, and now it matches. You can also change the color of the color bar here that expands at the beginning of the animation by left-clicking the color bar color node and double-click to expand that. And we can make it the same as the text by holding left-click on the eyedropper and selecting that. So you can see very easily we can modify each of the parts of this animation and everything remains intact and works the same way. Now that I've gone over how to modify this lower third to match your branding, for you to customize it and make it your own and change the name and title, now I'm going to dive into a few more of the specifics of how this works so you can create something similar on your own. So first I started out with this background node I titled BG, and that's just this transparent background node set to 16:9 aspect ratio canvas. So this will just automatically match the resolution of your project, whether it's 4K, 1080p, 720p, so that the lower third is positioned in the same spot at the same scale. Next, we have merged that with a merge node to a text plus node called name. And that, of course, contains the name of the person, but also the background here, which is a shading element. If you go to the shading tab of the text plus node, you have all these different options, and by default they're set to various things. Like number 2 by default is a red outline, but I changed that to a border fill, which is the background here. But you can see you could change it to an outline and do all sorts of different shading elements, create a shadow. But this is just a border fill that I increased the extend horizontal and vertical with. So by default, it would just highlight exactly around the letters and create a box around each letter. By increase the extend horizontal to 2.0, so it looks like one continuous box, and increase the extend vertical to 4.1 here, as you saw as I was modifying it. to give the illusion that it's just one bar. Now to make space for the title, I changed the offset Y under the position section under shading here, so that the bar is offset a certain amount to accommodate for that title. And you can see you can adjust this however you like. So next I placed the title, which is just another text plus node similar to name, and I didn't make too many modifications to this other than under layout I wrote an expression by right-clicking the keyframe icon here and going to modify with, and I hit expression, and I wrote the expression name.center. So what this says is basically reference the name node here and copy the center value from that name node to this title node. And so this works similar to a null object in After Effects, if you're familiar with that, where this title node is now parented to the name node. So wherever I move the name, the title will follow. Of course, by default, this puts the title at the very center of the name, but you can shift this by adjusting the position of the merge node that the title is hooked up to. See, if I set this to the very center, then it is set at the very center of our name, which is not what we want. So you have to shift the merge node down in order for this to be placed where you like. And then whenever you move the name, they should move together. Next, I created a mask to make the text and title appear. In order to do this, I created quite a large mask here and applied to the width value. I right-clicked the keyframe and went to modify with Anim curves. This is a new modifier. If I go up to the modifier tab here, this is a new modifier that allows you to create an animation curve over the course of your composition that will automatically adjust if you change the length of the composition. So within this animation curve modifier, I created a custom curve that sort of eases up until it reaches the maximum value under our scale, which is 2.131 here, and then remains the same until the end. And then I have selected the mirror option so that at the very beginning and the very end of the animation will do the exact opposite. So you can see that in action here, where the curve eases up and then it reaches that maximum value until it mirrors at the very end and conceals the bar again. Now, as you might expect, the color bar also uses the animation curve modifier in a similar way. For the height value, I right-clicked, modify with Anim curves, and you go to the modifiers tab, and I created another custom curve that again eases at the very beginning and then levels off at the maximum value and then mirrors at the very end to close. So we'll zoom in on that so you can see that. So if we could imagine this curve being the entire course of the animation and then this being the very center, this curve mirrors over the course of the composition. So the bar opens up, remains at the max scale of 0.102, and then scales back down at the very end. So one really cool reason why you might want to create this lower third animation this way by using Anim curves is because if we go to our Edit tab and hold left click and bring in our fusion composition to the timeline, you see it's over the 7-second duration that I set that it's working. If I want to extend this to show for around 12 seconds, the beginning and end of the animation will adjust and will end at that 12 seconds. So I can just extend the lower third animation to whatever duration I like that fits the timing of the video, and I don't have to go back and manually time stretch or adjust these keyframes like you would if you manually keyframe the animation. Now you might run into issues with flashing, like you see here. There's some flashing in the middle. I think that's an early bug with this Anim Curves modifier. So to fix that, you right click the animation on your timeline, and from the drop down go to Open in Fusion page and open the mask, the white mask, uncheck and recheck solid, and do the same thing for color bar, the color bar mask, and go back to your Edit tab and it should be fixed. Yeah, see there's no more flashing. So if you experience that issue, just check and uncheck the solid option on the masks and you should be good to go. Well, that does it for this video. I hope you find this lower third preset useful, whether you use it directly in your own projects or if you're picking it apart to see how it works. Either way, if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel where I upload a video just like this one every week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.